우리가 살면서 8시간은 꼭 자야 한다 이런 이야기 많이 듣잖아요. 그런데 지난 시간에 일주기 리듬과 수면에 있어서 전문가이신 러셀 포스터 선생님을 모시고 이야기를 들어보니까 모든 사람이 8시간을 다 똑같이 자야 하는 건 아니다. 사람마다 다 발 사이즈가 다르듯이 사람마다 필요한 수면의 양이 다르다라는 이야기를 해주셨어요. 그런데 여러분 여기서 질문이 하나 남지 않습니까? 나는 과연 몇 시간을 자야 괜찮은 사람일까? 이건 어떻게 알 수 있나요? 이번 영상은 이 질문에서 시작됩니다. 이게 아무것도 아닌 것 같아도 생각해보니까 상당히 큰 차이가 있더라고요. 이런 겁니다. 사람들이 다 똑같이 18시간씩 자야 한다고 생각하면 이렇겠지만 이 사람은 6시간만 자도 되는 사람인 거예요. 그러면은 이렇게 되겠죠. 이게 하루에 2시간이잖아요. 그런데 그러면 한 달이면 60시간이에요. 이게 12달이면 720시간인 거죠. 이거를 다시 24로 나눠보면 거의 30일, 그러니까 한 달을 더 깨어있는 거예요. 1년에. 10년이면 10달이죠. 12년이면 거의 1년 정도를 더 깨어있는 거라고 보면 되겠죠. 그러니까 좀 개이득인 느낌이 있죠, 이쪽이. 과연 나는 이쪽인가? 아니면 이쪽인가? 아니면 이 사이 어딘가? 궁금하잖아요. 몇 시간 자는 게 내 적정 수면량인가? 이거 어떻게 알 수 있나요? 선생님께 한번 여쭤봤습니다.
It seems like some people are just okay. They function just well with 6 hours of sleep. But a person like my husband, he has to sleep like at least 8 hours. That variance, where is it coming from? And I personally want to know how many hours of sleep that I need to figure that out. What kind of self-experiment can we do?
Why we differ is really interesting. We don't have a complete answer, but it's going to be changes in the biological clock, genetic changes, but there's another process regulating sleep, which is called the homeostatic drive or sleep pressure. And that basically means the longer you've been awake, the greater the buildup of sleep pressure and the greater the need for sleep. And then when you sleep, this sleep pressure is dissipated. Now, some people are really sensitive to the chemicals driving sleep pressure that build up in the brain. So at an earlier time, they will feel tired, whereas somebody who has different receptors will feel tired later. So there are important differences in the architecture, in the structure of sleep. When one goes away on a holiday, and you don't have the constraints of work, for many people, one's sleep pattern expands. And that's a really good sort of measure of what your individual biological sleep needs are. And one has to be slightly careful. There are some people who say, oh, I only need 6 hours or 4 hours. And the problem is the tired brain can become so tired, it can't detect how tired it is. So there were some studies on London taxi drivers a few years ago, and they said, how do you cope, with long days or night shift work? And they said, oh, I'm fine, it's no problem at all. And then you take these individuals into the lab and you measure their reaction times, their cognitive responses, their ability to process information, and it's really bad. You've got to be really critical of yourself.
그런데 생각해보면 이런 경우가 또 있을 수 있겠죠. 똑같이 8시간을 자야 되는 사람들인 거예요. A랑 A 프라임. 그런데 이 사람은 8시간을 자는데 예를 들어서 집에 여러 가지 일이 있어. 그래서 잠을 되게 깊이 잘 못 자. 아니면은 오늘 회사에서 한 실수들, 사람 만나서 한 실수들 막 이런 것 때문에 악몽을 꾼다든지 되게 코를 세게 거는 배우자가 있어가지고 잠에서 자꾸 깬다든지 아니면 만성적으로 스트레스가 되게 많은 사람이든지 이렇게 하다 보면 이렇게 수면 시간에는 크게 문제가 있는 것 같지는 않은데 수면의 질에 문제가 있을 때 자고 일어났는데도 피로도가 계속 쌓여있고 인지적인 능력, 기억력 이런 것들이 이렇게 완전히 풀 가동이 된다라는 생각이 안 든다든지 수면의 질에 문제가 있을 때 이쪽에서 이쪽으로 넘어가려면 어떻게 해야 하는가에 관한 질문을 선생님께 드려봤습니다.
So now we have all these smartphone apps that claims that that's helpful to kind of see the quality of the sleep that we have. Like how dependable are those apps?
I'm really negative about them. So none have been endorsed by the sleep federations. None are FDA approved. As they exist at the moment, they're okay for telling you roughly what time you fell asleep, whether you woke up in the night, and roughly what time you woke up in the morning. But when they start saying, you had great slow wave sleep or REM sleep or things like that, they become very inaccurate. That's where we are at the moment. I think with advances in AI, that's going to change. Because what will happen is that you'll get much better resolution of what your rest activity, your sleep-wake profiles are. The problem is that at the moment, these apps depend upon largely a single algorithm, which has been validated in a bunch of Californian undergraduates. And of course, they are not typical for all of us.
So let's say that I feel like I should improve my sleep quality a little bit. What can we do if that's the case?
As I discuss in Lifetime, there are sort of 4 domains. You can look at what to do during the day, immediately before bed, the bedroom itself, and in bed. And so if we start, during the day, the first thing, as we've touched upon, get as much morning light as you possibly can to set the clock to the external world. If you need a nap, it suggests you're not getting the sleep you need at night. But if you do need a nap, then make sure it's not longer than 20 minutes and it's not within about 6 hours of bedtime. So if you have a nap at lunchtime, the second part of the day can be more productive. You do feel more alert. If it's a longer nap, you go down into deeper sleep and you feel groggy. You can't really wake up and then make use of it. The other thing, of course, is if your nap is too close to bedtime, then you can push back the sleep pressure, which means it'll be more difficult to get to sleep at night. Exercise can be very good at reinforcing our circadian rhythms. And the key thing is that it's not too close to bedtime. If you raise core body temperature before bed, it can be more difficult to get to sleep. Part of going to sleep is a drop in core body temperature. Food intake, have your maximum food intake during the first half of the day. So your main calorie intake should be breakfast and lunchtime and a small dinner time. And in fact, our ability, the circadian clock, is not adapted to have a large meal at the end of the day. It's more difficult to clear the glucose and the fat from the circulation at the end of the day compared to the dinner the early in the day. But the key thing is towards the end of the day, make time to step back from stressful situations. Most people don't have a sleep problem. They have a stress or an anxiety problem. Consider relaxation techniques like mindfulness, for example, and they have been shown to relax people and get those stress hormones down and then for much easier to get to sleep. Before bed, reduce light levels, because the higher the light, the greater the levels of alertness, and that will make it more difficult to get to sleep. Again, stop using electronic devices, whether it be tablets or smartphones, 30 minutes before you want to go to bed. It's not the light from those devices, it's the alerting effect it's having on the brain. Alcohol, sleeping tablets do not provide a biological mimic for sleep. They are sedatives, and they can even disrupt some of the important things going on within the brain that produce healthy sleep. Now, the bedroom, it shouldn't be too warm, no hotter than 17, 18 degrees. For the aged, it's been suggested it might need to go up to 22 degrees. But the key thing is, if it's too warm, you can't lose that core body temperature. You can't experience that drop in temperature, and therefore it's more difficult to get off to sleep. Invest in a good mattress, pillows, duvets, and some of these things can be quite expensive. But when you think about it, a third of our lives will be spent in bed. Now, one big problem, what do you do if your partner snores? Earplugs, of course, but if you can't tolerate earplugs, well, first of all, you need to check that your partner doesn't have obstructive sleep apnea, which is they will be sort of snoring and then they'll stop breathing completely. And then they go, and that's dangerous, and that can be fixed. But as I've said to many couples, sleeping in a separate room is no reflection upon the quality of your relationship. In fact, it's the beginning of a new relationship because you won't resent your partner waking you up because of the snoring. Your partner won't resent you banging them in the ribs to stop them snoring. Actually, you can make it into a nice, relaxing routine. Have a cup of decaffeinated tea or something. You say goodnight, you go off and sleep, and then you sort of get together in the morning, and it can be a very lovely way of both ending and starting the day.
Wow, there are so many things I can do to improve. So let's say that we tried this method and then quality of the sleep got better. Can quality of the sleep compensate the duration of the sleep or irregularity of sleep?
It's a really interesting point. Now, you may have fatigue, which is different from sleepiness. Sleepiness is cured by sleep. Fatigue is an overwhelming sense of tiredness, a lack of energy, and a decrease in motivation. But people often don't distinguish between sleepiness and fatigue. And fatigue is a hallmark of illness. If you're setting up to get more sleep and you're getting more sleep, but you're still feeling not refreshed, you may be suffering from fatigue. What's also turned out to be fascinating is that the tired brain remembers negative experiences but forgets the positive ones. So one's whole world view is going to be biased towards the negative. You're making decisions on negative experiences and not the positive ones. Sleep and circadian rhythm disruption is an incredible risk factor for increased levels of psychosis and depression. And we now know that poor sleep in the middle years increases the risk of dementia in the later years. And there's some, again, more research emerging every day on this. So by understanding the critical importance of sleep, it isn't an indulgence, it isn't a luxury. It defines our ability to function and our quality of life and health.
이렇게 두 개의 영상에 걸쳐서 일주기 리듬과 크로노타입 그리고 수면까지 러셀 포스터 선생님을 모시고 이야기를 들어봤습니다. 저 같은 경우도 되게 오랫동안 잠이야 잘 잘 수도 있고 못 잘 수도 있지 그건 내 컨트롤 영역이 바뀌다 라는 생각을 알게 모르게 해왔던 것 같아요. 그런데 선생님 말씀을 들으면서 잠을 잘 자면 기분도 좋아지고 일도 더 잘할 수 있게 되고 기억력도 좋아지고 또 지병의 위험도 낮아진다고 하니까 수면의 질에 대해서 조금 꾸준히 관심을 가지고 조금씩 개선시켜 나가봐야겠다라는 생각을 했던 것 같습니다. 여러분들 2024년에는 평안하게 잠드시고 또 푹 주무시고 상쾌하게 일어나시는 그런 날들로 가득하시기를 바랍니다.